Overrated. I'm Michael J. O'Connor.
I'm James Fluty.
Yeah, and this week we watched David O. Russell's Heart Huckabees, his existential comedy, self-named apparently. Did you enjoy the film?
I did. Yeah. I had watched it years ago in high school, and I loved it in high school. Watched it a bunch of times in high school. As I watched it now, I have changed a lot since high school.
Right, as it turns out. I'd never seen it before. Maybe like in, along on TV or something to that effect, but certainly not sat down and watched it. You know what it reminded me of is that Waking Life.
Yeah,
kind of. It's that kind of. I don't know. It's kind of a freshman philosophy.
Yeah,
But I did think that there were. There's funny. It's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
David O. Russell is a very talented writer and director.
Yeah.
It just even by his review of the film now is that he refers to it as his midlife crisis film, and he's not very happy with it.
Oh, really?
And I think that there's something to that, because I think a lot of the philosophy is pretty weak.
Yeah.
And so, and there's also moments that just they come across to me as poor filmmaking. Like maybe there's something I was missing and they set it up in some way I didn't get. But I remember once they leave that dinner scene,
yeah,
and they're riding away on their bikes, he goes like, "We got to get there quick, because the meeting's happening right now."
Right.
And it just seems like this weird forced setup to just how abrupt the next scene starts, where they're just in the middle of a meeting and yelling at each other.
Right.
So there are little moments like that just seem kind of thrown together.
It's like that thing when there's like a disaster, and someone's like, "Let's turn on the radio and see," and it's the exact moment that the newscast starts. They don't have to sit through any. Yeah. I would love to see a movie where people have to sit through like commercials for Diamond. Well, okay, it's going to be a while before the actual news comes on. Yeah,
I don't think of that as a flaw. I think that's how a movie has to work.
Right.
You can't just sit and watch people wait for a broadcast to come on. That reminds me of the often complaint and of Unbreakable, is that the character's one flaw, like his one weakness, happens on his first time to go get. So he just happens to run into water this first time. Yeah, it's a movie,
right?
Like any other movie on the planet. That's how a story works.
Yeah, exactly. That's fine.
It seems so like it's not. It seems arbitrary to them, I guess. Yeah. But I mean, how else is that gonna? Yeah. Like, it just happens to. The one cave this knight runs to happens to have a dragon. Right. What do you expect the story to be?
Yeah, exactly. That's funny.
So I don't. Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily a flaw. Right. But when it seems forced,
right?
When it seems like, and also the audio comes in and he's already off camera. And that's part of the reason why it seems so forced. It almost seems like additional audio was added to set up this next scene.
I feel like there's a lot of really strange looping and ADR in it that is really, really obvious. There's a part where Jude Law's house burns down. And Dustin Hoffman, they don't even show. It's just it's really specific. They didn't even show him walking up to him. It's just clearly his voice recorded, being like, "Look at your house" or something to that effect. It was just it was odd.
I wonder if part of that, and with theme, our theme is we should probably announce that at the beginning.
Yeah.
The cruel or difficult to work with directors.
Right.
And I wonder if part of that was that he couldn't get the actors to do some of these things because there was so much conflict.
Yeah.
During the making of this.
I don't know. I mean, it really is. I don't know. Do you want to play one of the clips of?
We can play one of the now infamous clips.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got them loaded up. This Which one do you want to do first?
There is language. If you're watching this in public, there's really bad language.
Yeah. Do you want to do the one?
This is not safe for work in general.
Exactly. I think just as a rule of thumb. There's the one where they're in the car, or there's one where
probably the one in the office.
In the office, okay.
Because that one shows David O. Russell.
Yeah.
The one in the car, it's Lily Tomlin, but you don't hear David O. Russell's part of it.
Right.
You just hear her responding to him.
It really makes me wonder which one of these came first.
Yeah, that is a part. Maybe there's difficulty.
Yeah.
Once seeing this set, now this is always pointed at. Look how awful David O. Russell is.
Yeah.
But when you watch it, Lily Tomlin seems pretty difficult to work with. Totally. And he seems pretty like he's trying to be patient for a while.
Yeah.
I think it's just that he explodes so much worse than anything Lily Tomlin did.
Yeah, he does.
That it's easy to zero in on him.
Yeah.
But I also found it interesting that in both scenes, Lily Tomlin's going, fuck you.
Yeah.
But all the other actors are just sort of going like, can we just get through this?
Oh, yeah.
This isn't helping.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Which makes it hard for me to go like she was some innocent victim of this tyrannical director when no one else is expressing that.
Totally. All right, we'll do the one in the office.
And I saw her talk about it later, but we'll wait until after that.
Sure. All right, let's see.
Photos of yourself. See, it's harder actually to pick it up from the damn desk.
Okay.
You were planning.
Take a beat and preset it.
You can put the fucking thing down. You can put the folder down for a second to use both hands.
Yeah, and take your legs off the desk and a whole bunch of other stuff.
It says you gotta keep. You can take your legs down.
We could buy some.
Okay, for Christ's sake, let's just take it one fucking line at a time. Instead of changing everything it's very difficult to even create what you're going to do when it's constant a barrage of change this, do this. No, wait, do it a different way. Don't get me started. Okay, so I'm just saying, let's just, it's impossible. One actor's doing one thing, another actor's doing another, and I'm not as brilliant as you. I can't keep up with you.
No, but we're being very patient.
We're being very efficient.
Be patient with you. So you can
Let's rehearse.
You're
please.
being impatient.
No, I said patient.
Let's rehearse.
I couldn't understand you. And it's not the first time.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely an example.
Fuck you!
Oh boy.
I'm just trying to fucking help you. Do you understand me?
No, you're not.
I'm being a fucking collaborator. I was trying to help you figure out
You're
the fucking picture. Hey, bitch, I'm not here to be fucking yelled at. I worked on this fucking thing for 3 fucking years, not to have some fucking cunt yell at me in front of the fucking crew when I'm trying to fucking help you, bitch. Figure it out yourself.
Well, I have to figure it out.
Yeah, fuck yourself.
Good. Why don't you fuck your whole movie? Why don't you fuck your whole movie? Because that's what you're doing. We better get some insurance against the director.
I love that he comes back into the door.
Yeah. Like a Scooby-Doo villain.
Totally.
You're a fucking grown-up. Act like a grown-up. You're not a baby. You're a fucking grown-up. I'm here to fucking help you. That's all I was doing, was trying to help you figure out anything. You don't have to yell. You can talk to me. You don't have to yell. You can talk to me. Do I yelling? Do I not fucking yell at you before right now? No. I never fucking yelled at you, you fucking say.
That's the yelling standard for the whole set.
All right. Yeah, you could. I don't think you could. Could you see that, or did it work for the screen sharing for you?
I didn't see it, but I have seen it.
Okay. The people at home will see it if they're watching the video.
I really have to say that, like, I think I would find it difficult to work with Lily Tomlin.
Yeah.
Based on the videos that we've seen, whether we show the other one or we just put a link.
Sure.
But you got to respect the fact that this guy is yelling at her. Mm-hmm. And he's the only one directing the names. Like, I don't recall her calling him an asshole or a piece of shit or anything. And he's directing names at her, throwing things off the desk, scaring other people on set. And she doesn't cower.
No.
She doesn't. And that is impressive.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think that's might be part of the reason why people side with her immediately. Mm-hmm. On this is because he's so much worse, and also she stands her ground, and stature wise and everything, and the power structure of a film set is with the director. So that's impressive.
Yeah, agreed.
And then I saw an interview with her, and someone brought up that people, sided with her possibly because her fans were so adamant. And I love Lily Tomlin's work. But she said she sided with David O. Russell in that video, and that she was difficult to work with and he's difficult to work with. And then she said something that I found really interesting, is that she was like, you get upset and you vocalize that and people think that's bad, and I don't necessarily think that as a bad thing.
Right.
And she reminds me of these people that I've worked with where I totally see how they interact with the world as good.
Yeah.
But completely opposite to how I interact with the world, and very difficult for me to work with. Right. Where they'll just get really pissed off and be like, "You fucking idiot, look at this stupid thing you did." 30 seconds later being like, "Your best friend."
Sure.
Sure. And I'll be like, "What happened in that?" And you're like, "Oh, they're like, that's 30 seconds ago. That doesn't matter anymore." And meanwhile, I'm upset for a month over this thing that they did, That was
something that I definitely had to learn for a long time. I worked as like a line cook, worked in restaurants, and, working for really difficult chefs is like that, But one thing, it was a tough learning curve that, after you're getting screamed at and called an idiot and, what have you, that then it's over. Like that's a skill set, definitely. Like, okay, well, let's go get a drink after work. Like, but what about? I thought I was a piece of shit. Like, what is happening? And it's confusing. And I think you're right. In that it's a different kind of mindset and how people react to the world. Because like you, I'm like, but I internalize things.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Right. And they start yelling. They go like, "You idiot! I can't believe you fucked up like that." And you're thinking inside like, "I guess I'm fired.
Yeah,
I guess that's the end of this. Like that. Right. I can't possibly work with this person now.
Right.
Or I'll quit because there's no way I'm working with this horrible human being that treats people like this."
Right.
But then like 5 seconds later, they're like, "I'm buying you a drink. You did a great job today."
Oh my God.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you function like that? And I do notice they're hot, like they're in a better mood. Like after that, they're in a better mood than you are.
Right.
And I wonder if they're going to live longer too, because they get all of that out.
100%. We just
meanwhile, I'm holding on to it and I'm growing a tumor as it's happening. I
was going to say we turn it into cancer. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I really wonder if they're making a worse world, if I'm making a worse world.
Right.
If there is a concept of worse world.
Right.
If I would like to believe, I don't think the world actually works like this, that you need all those kinds of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone serves a function in some way. I don't actually think the world works like that, but it's a nice thought.
It is, yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of this movie is too. That's a nice thought.
Right.
It's a nice concept that they're lying out there that doesn't really have any basis or strong argument behind it.
I think you're right about the other actors, because in that clip specifically, you can see Jason Schwartzman just kind of like get up and saunter away, like, oh boy. Like, yeah, well, here we are. And in the other one, which we can link to or whatever, the apparently always affable Dustin Hoffman is great in that clip, because he's just like, oh, come on, guys, let's not, we don't have to do this right now. It's what an odd what an odd dynamic it seems that film had when they were making it. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, how much can you take of someone's opinion of the world and their philosophy, especially their attachment to Buddhist and Eastern philosophy, when they explode and call someone a cunt and throw things off a desk?
Well, right. I mean, the irony of that is not lost on anyone, I don't think. Yeah. Right.
Now, Dustin Hoffman's character is based on Robert Thurman.
Oh, really?
Yes, who's Uma Thurman's dad.
Okay.
And who is a Buddhist and has written extensively about specifically Tibetan Buddhism. And he is a guy that I used to read and find interesting in college, and have since sort of, I don't really like the kind of stuff he puts out now. I saw an interview with him and Deepak Chopra, and I think you have to be pretty out there in New Age if Deepak Chopra is the sound of reason.
Yeah. Oh my God.
In that interview.
Oh my God.
So like, and it's a culture that I've almost backlashed against in a way. So it's very interesting that I was very open to it and very interested in it. And now I'm sort of the opposite end of that spectrum. Not quite Richard Dawkins end,
Right.
but further that way.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a perfect, if you are the type of, like you say, kind of college kid that, reads the Bhagavad Gita and, goes to Burning Man. I really like a lot of the kind of existentialist stuff that is in it, because I like Camus, and I like I was actually just finished reading Nausea by Sartre, and like I like that stuff, but I think when
it's pronounced "sought."
Is it? I've heard it a couple different ways.
I'm telling you, I don't actually know.
Okay.
That's just the kind of thing that you get when you start talking about.
Well, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. It's such a fucking barrier to even talking about this shit. God, forget it.
Like you just go, forget it.
Yeah, I'm out. Goodbye. I'm interested in that stuff, but it is such a oversimplification and kind of pop culture cultureification of it.
It would be hard to do an in-depth study of that stuff in a 2-hour movie while being entertaining. Right. Certainly,
with
one of the things that I'm so that I've left that sort of openness, the same level of openness to that philosophy type, is that I've seen this sort of willingness to obscure facts in order to fit it. For example, a lot of what he does in this film is this sort of like quantum physics aligns with this Eastern philosophy. String theory shows this. Right. And not only has quantum physics not done that in many ways, this idea that I understand the basic outline of quantum physics, none of the math, right, but let me explain to you how quantum physics works. Yeah. Is really silly. Yeah, it is. Because every time I hear a physicist talk, they have that breakdown moment where they go, it's really hard for me to explain this without math. Right. Because that's the language. I mean, it seems so silly to have no real understanding of the basic language of physics, and then to be able to tell people how to interpret it. Right. Right. And you see that a lot. Yeah. Yeah, I think, and especially with someone like Deepak Chopra, who I think brings up, brings that up all the time. It is silly to align those two things in a way. So a very interesting interview, and on Deepak Chopra's defense, he walked into the lion's den. So like. Right. I always respect when someone's willing to do that. He surrounded himself by very staunch scientists in like a Stanford or something like that. It was just nothing but physicists and stuff like that. So the fact that he was willing to do that is pretty impressive. Right. So give him his due there. But it was him constantly spouting these scientific sounding things around scientists who then went, you didn't say anything there. Right. He would go like, well, the quantum soup of mechanics will leave the viewer and the subjective reality at opposed to each other. And then people going like, listen, I work with Stephen Hawking. Right. You didn't say anything there. Right. Nothing you said is applied to quantum mechanics. Right. Although I guess Hawking would be more Newtonian physics, but I'm sure the ability to work with him, would show that you have an understanding of physics. Right. And he's just like that all the time. What is sometimes referred to as woo-woo science. Yeah. And I remember also this friend of mine, talking about Einstein. Mm-hmm. It was another great example of how this kind of misinformation goes out, is that they were quoting Einstein's, God doesn't play dice with the universe. And he goes like, see, Einstein believes in God. Right. I'm like, no, that's not. He's specifically quoted as saying that a personal God seems silly and childish. Right. He just uses that term, and then they got really angry at me.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's just I find that actually, yeah, that often the word God is used because probably it is so easy for people to understand.
It's eloquent.
Right.
Oftentimes, I think if you're gonna hear a quote, you're gonna hear a quote from these people because it was eloquently stated.
Right.
If you were to say, the laws of thermonuclear dynamics within the confines of the universe do not play dice with the universe.
Right.
That's not snappy. That's not quick. We need something.
Right. It's
rolls off the tongue, gets people.
Right.
It's just not going to work. So you have to use this sort of anamorphic language.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be on a calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of God, can we please talk about Mark Wahlberg in this movie?
It is so interesting that if Mark Wahlberg is plugged into the right role, that he's just so charming,
he's so good,
and so likable, and then if he's plugged into a different role, he becomes so unwatchable to me. It's just but honestly, he's so fun in this and so relatable, and he's just fantastic in this film.
He's so good.
in my opinion, again, unwatchable to me.
Right.
I'm sure people love Transformers. I do not.
We got a Transformer here.
I love his role in this so much.
I know, he's great. He's just, you're right. When he's funny, man, who knew he could be, he's got that muscle to work. I mean, he did beat a guy until he was blind. Let's not, forget that.
Yes.
Let us not forget that. And tried to have it expunged from his record. So, I mean, kind of a piece of shit. But
probably. But a troubled past.
Sure.
A difficult. I don't know when he did that. If he was 16 at the time and he's a completely different person.
Of course.
I don't want to hold something against anyone that they did 40 years ago.
Sure.
And also, trying to get it erased. If you're ashamed of something, you might understand that you're trying to get something erased.
Right.
I don't know. But there is a point in the film where he says this sort of bizarre line, and I remember actually looking it up in high school, and he says, Father Flavin can't save all of us.
Oh, yeah.
That was a priest that took him in when he was committing crimes and actually did change his life.
Really?
And so he put his name in there.
Interesting.
Which I thought was a very cute side story. Yeah.
Huh. He that's interesting. Yeah, because that line does stick out. We're like, what? But I mean, there's a lot in this whole movie that's like that.
It is something about when you start reading about film and listening to audio commentary and watching more film, how you really begin to see that there is very little fat in a film.
Right.
If a line is there, if an item's there, it's usually there for a reason.
Right.
There are those moments, certainly, that people go like, "Oh, this is this," and then the director will go, "No, I ran out of film, so I had to change it."
Right.
That definitely does happen, but most of the time things are there for a reason.
There's most of the time, right? Unless you're Richard Kelly.
Is he known for?
Well, no. There's if you watch, I think it's the commentary on Donnie Darko. The person is asking like, "Oh, okay, well." The interviewer, whoever's with him, it might be the commentator, it might just be in some interview, asking him, okay, so does this mean this, and does this mean this? And he's just kind of like, yeah, sure. It's pretty funny, but he's very like, yeah, if you want, let's go with that. But he's kind of an oddball anyway.
That is what I actually love about his films, is that when I watch them, it just seems like this eccentric artist was given a bunch of money and got to do what they wanted. Because so often everything's restrained, but you watch Southland Tales and you're like, he just got to do whatever the hell he wanted.
I love
this
that fucking
insane.
movie. That movie's crazy. I did think, and it was interesting because when I was watching this, I started it and got about halfway through and was really kind of like, man, fuck this thing. Like I really didn't like it. But as it progressed, it also, like we were saying, there was a lot of weird cuts. I really hated the animations, the like dream sequences and stuff. Like,
I mean, do you think you can look at it and go, "This was made 17 years ago"?
I suppose
and
so.
those dream sequences seem a little less.
Yeah.
Because by now it looks like a cutscene in a YouTube video.
Yeah, it really does.
It looks like those like TED Talks animations.
Right.
But at the time, that was pretty different.
Totally, and even it gets the idea across just fine on its own. It's not. I know that,
but viscerally, your reaction was sort of just you didn't like it.
It totally was. Yeah, I felt like it was just too much business, just too much of a style. It was kind of like I really disliked that movie Birdman with Michael Keaton, the one that won Best Picture, just because I felt like there wasn't a whole lot to it. It was a lot of style over substance, which just really kind of bothers me on a lot of things. But boy, as it progressed, I got sucked into it, and I felt like it was a really crazy well written. That was the thing that really stuck out to me, is how well structured it ended up being for something that is so kind of out there. It's kind of one of the things I like about Rick and Morty, is it's crazy, but it's so well held together with this kind of like structural glue that it ends up being so watchable. And that's why I felt the same way about this.
Yeah, I would say that the structure at times wasn't like the story structure as a whole.
Yeah.
Didn't strike me as perfect, but I mean the dialogue, the way people are yelling over each other, but it's all very confined, and like the scene on the porch when Mark Wahlberg's character's wife is moving out.
Oh yeah, it's so good.
And the firemen are yelling at him, and he's yelling at them, and they get the story across, but they have all these asides, and they're building those characters. I think that was done incredibly well. Yeah, I did too. And I really, really enjoyed that.
I did too.
That sort of controlled chaos.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was looking for.
And that might fit into the metaphysic-y kind of thing there. Maybe that was on purpose.
Oh man, what? Crazy dude. Yeah. What else has he done? What other?
Three Kings. The Fighter.
Oh, okay.
American Hustle.
Okay.
I think he did Joy recently. I haven't seen that one yet.
I like Three Kings.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, that's a pretty. So this is pretty different from a lot of his other work, which might be. I mean, why it was so. I could see being not very. Maybe not confident in choices you're making.
Yeah. I think in many ways what he did with, I think I could look at it this way, and I'm sure a lot of people would very much disagree with me. But I could see that as this as being his best film in the sense that this is his biggest swing. Now, it might be considered a swing and a miss, but after this, he did a lot of other people's stories. He did sort of movies that that structure works. Right. The Fighter is a true story, almost a biopic about a Cinderella story, kind of. And we know that structure works. That structure has worked a million times, and it's a good movie. It's a really good movie. So was Cinderella Man. So was Rocky. So we know that story functions well. Same thing, American Hustle. It's a crime movie. It's a period piece. We know these things work. Whereas I Heart Huckabees, this is a very different genre. This is a very different thing he's doing. Yeah. And sure, it didn't work out perfectly, but man, it really is a risk you're taking.
Yeah. Yeah, big time.
When you do that.
It reminds me, I would rather see that. I would always rather see a big choice, because I feel like art in general is about making choices. It's about, taking risks. Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things I've heard, and one of the reasons why I love Nicolas Cage so much. He's one of my favorite actors of all time, honestly, because not because he's very good. I mean, he is, but not because
he's had his moments.
He's
had his moments.
Absolutely has. But he goes big. He always goes big. He always tries something.
when I was a comic, I never really fit into any of the cliques, mostly just because I'm me and I have to push people away and all that stuff. But also because the comics that I respected were oftentimes seen as the hacks or the ones that were sort of pointed at and mocked. In many ways, I can respect a Dane Cook over a Stephen Wright, because when you go out there with all this energy and you're jumping around, when that bombs, oof, that is a painful thing to watch.
Yeah.
That is really, really hard to...
I just got sweaty.
It's really uncomfortable. But when these comics go out and they have this deadpan delivery and they do these sort of esoteric jokes, I still like it.
Yeah.
I like that comedy too. But when you bomb, they just go, yeah, they didn't get me.
Ugh.
You know, it's so easy. It's this safe route to take where you never really have to feel rejected.
Right.
And that you're so much smarter than the audience that you're performing in front of. And so I didn't really do either of those styles in my particular opinion. I don't know, you might disagree with me, but I could respect that risk that the other comics were taking.
Right. Yeah, because man, you're right. That like when you talking about that, I got a little sweaty. Just like, I
remember there's one woman I didn't like her comedy. I wanted to fake laugh, but I'm not good at fake laughing.
Right.
And she had this like mariachi clicking character she would do, where she actually had the little clamshells, like the click click click, and it was like this big over the top accent. And she'd do a little dance and just nothing, and it was just But again, when I see that, but when it works, obviously it goes really well.
Sure.
I've never seen that particular bit work, but it was the plan. I didn't see her perform very often, so.
Oh man, yeah, that's hard.
I think she won a competition though.
Okay.
I think that might be the same comic, so I can't remember very well.
Well, you know, like you say, you know, I mean, you're right in that taking that risk and being big.
You're bound to miss. You're bound to miss.
Yeah.
You're not. There's very few people who went out there and took those risks and just hit it out of the park every time.
Right.
They're 1 out of a billion. Mm-hmm. You're going to miss, and you kind of have to hope that all your misses come at the beginning of your career.
Oh yeah.
Because by the time you're later on, then people are just vicious about it.
Right.
Once you set the bar high.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it's really unfair, and I think people do a disservice to artists and people who create things all the time for that reason.
Right. Yeah, because you're right. If you never fully give a big, you know, if you never fully really try, so to speak, or try something new or different that someone might not like, then you're right in that you never have to. You know, it's like someone who, I mean, it's like in the film, you know, when Dustin Hoffman's talking to Jason Schwartzman and he says, you know. You've never been in a relationship because it would be too painful. You make these have these relationships in your head because that's easier. And in a way that kind of doing the things that you know work, whether it's comedy or whether it's whatever you're doing, it's always going to be easier to never fully try. You know? Yeah,
it's really hard to be vulnerable.
Yes, exactly.
Artists are putting themselves out generally and being very vulnerable. Mm-hmm. It's a part of the reason why I stopped doing art. Not in that I couldn't take criticism, but I just started seeing criticism in this different way, where it was really just this. A lot of it is this sad attempt to be better than people who are actually doing something.
Yeah, sure. Of course.
And so I didn't really want to participate in that.
Right.
It wasn't, you know, here's my opinion, and it's just an opinion, and here are the reasons for it. And you have this very informed and intelligent opinion. It was generally, especially with the age of the internet, where everyone gets to have their opinion heard, it's just name calling and states of objective reality over what the value of this art is.
Right. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's so, yeah, you can't. This is kind of a problem that I don't know if it's a problem, but And anyone who's been listening to this show thus far might disagree, but it's very rare that I see a movie that I don't like or can't find something that I like about. It's very rare that I read a book I don't like or find something that I like about it, and almost to a fault in that I just like things. I just think things are kind of great, and
Isn't it great that things are out there?
Yeah, no, kind of, yeah, or at least well, they tried, and I do have that self-awareness that that's fucking better than I could do. A lot of times, it's very rare that unless you think you can do better, I don't know that there's a lot of, or you can say, I'll definitely see a movie or whatever and say, I would have liked to see this happen instead. And I think that that's valid, but just being like, it sucks.
I feel like I do have to make a conscious decision not to fall into that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I think it's more so based on being trained to do that. That you get more praise if you're scathing and intelligent in your review of something. Like if you're just smart, but you're very forgiving and you're very open, then it's so easy to be cynical and look smart. And ultimately all of us want to be praised for intelligence or looks or kindness. And, we want validation. And so it is something that I very much have to squash, and I fail at times.
Interesting. I think, yeah, that's true. Maybe it was always like this, but when cynicism became synonymous with intelligence,
Yeah, I wonder if it's always been like that, because as far back as I can remember, that has been the case.
Yeah, me too.
This idea of being too cool and too smart and too good for all of these things. Certainly there is there are things that I think of as being base and lowest common denominator, and that when people say they like them, I get kind of uncomfortable because I don't see the value other than it being sort of silly and constructed simply to make money and manipulate.
Right.
Like I see that, but I try to go, here's how I see it. Maybe I'm wrong.
Right.
What is value, and it has value to you. And there's a book that I hated, absolutely hated. And I put just talking about it, I felt like I needed someone else to hate it so I could complain about it.
Right.
But people will go like, oh, I was thinking about reading it. And I said, immediately, you might like it. A lot of people love it. Obviously, this is connecting with people.
Right. Right.
This obviously has a lot of value to it that I just didn't get.
Right. There's a author that I love who just put out a novel. He usually writes short stories, and he just put out a novel, and it's blown up. It's huge. My mother read it. She lent it to me. Like and I hated it. I really hated it.
You generally like the work of this author.
Always, yeah.
When long form,
it just was a miss for me. And it was one of those. I'll just say what it was. Whatever. It was George Saunders who did this book, Lincoln in the Bardo, and he was on Stephen Colbert's show and all this other stuff. It really blew up. And it's one of those things that I read it. It's all constructed in all from different quotes from fake historical figures. So it tells the story that way. Really clever device,
sure.
But just unfucking readable to me. And and I think it's one of those things. Like my wife was like, "Oh, I want to read it," and it was one of those things. I said the same thing. Like, you might like it, simply because she hasn't read his short stories, which I think are absolutely brilliant. And it might be something that if this is the starting point for you, you might really like it.
Yeah. I think it needs to be okay to say that again. I think it needs to be okay to say, I didn't like this. This wasn't for me. I remember once I went and saw a baseball game, and I'm not a big baseball guy. I didn't grow up with it. Didn't grow up with sports in my house whatsoever.
Right.
And I feel like for a lot of people, if you try and introduce sports to them when they're adult, it's a little difficult.
Yeah.
because it's all very arbitrary
right.
when you look at it. You know,
Totally.
You take this shape, you hit this other shape over a distance, and you run in this shape. And
Yeah.
if you do that the most, then we throw a parade.
Right.
You know, it seems strange.
It does make you want to kind of look around and be like, you guys know we all die one day, right? Like, this doesn't mean anything.
Yes, that's why we're doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Shut up.
Right.
And so I went and saw a baseball game, and to be fair, like the crowd itself seemed to agree that this was a very boring game.
Right.
Like they're trying to do the wave, and like they're trying to play ba 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 ba, and the crowd was like. So I went home and I said up on my social media, and I said like, I saw my first baseball game live. Can totally see the appeal of it. Wasn't for me, is what I put.
Uh-huh.
And I had 4 different people, either in person or in comments, go like, "That's such a James thing to say." That's classic James. And I went, "What about that is rare to me?" Is it so odd to hear someone say, "I see the value, but I don't participate"? And I think it might be. I think that might be kind of strange now to just not decide that something is either good or bad.
Right. Right. Oh, that's funny. I mean, yeah, that's got to make you take a look at yourself. What do people think of me?
Exactly. What? And I got really upset, and they kept going, it's not an insult.
Right.
I'm like, but you're saying it like it's weird, and I don't see anything strange or out of place about that. And if it is strange and out of place, it makes the world around me seem a little darker.
Right.
Like this, what sounds so reasonable to me is somehow this quirky trait that
Right. Oh my God.
It's sort of like going like bumping into someone and apologizing, and then going like, look at James apologizing.
Classic James.
That's so James.
Classic James. That's hilarious.
I think it's wrong to attack random people on the street. Oh, there's bleeding heart James.
Oh yeah. Tree hugging James. That's so funny. Oh man, it might be simply because I don't know. People do know that you're not into sports, so they were like, "Well, of course he didn't like it." They didn't see the subtext of what you're saying.
It wasn't that I didn't like. I think if I had gone on and said like baseball sucks, I decide.
Right.
Been like, oh no, you suck. Go hell.
Right.
Because I make fun of sports every now and again, realizing that there's obvious value to it.
Sure.
And I respect that. But at the same time, when I look at it from an outside perspective, I go like, this is weird.
Right.
This is a little weird that you're this obsessed with it.
Right.
There are things to point out that are strange. Like the amount of people that said, I should like baseball. And then they go, if you learn the intricacies of it, it's like chess. And I go, oh, then why don't you watch chess?
Right.
I've never seen anyone watch chess who's made that analogy. like if it is, then there should be 2 things that you love.
Right. Oh,
but there isn't.
That's hilarious. I actually recently went to a game, and there were these kids behind me kids, I don't know, they were like 19, 20. And they were obviously there ironically, and they spent the entire game very like, oh, well, sports ball, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's their prerogative. But then I overheard that they were all creative writing students. And it made me want to turn around and be like, you feel nothing. If you do everything ironically and never truly get interested in anything, you are probably all shitty writers. So please.
There's part of the reason that I know that there is value to this is the amount of people that I've loved their work so much who love sports.
Sure.
There are these writers that I think are phenomenal. When I was young and I wanted to be cynical and I wanted to hate things, especially things that were so popular that I couldn't get any value from.
Of course.
Of course I wanted to hate sports.
Yeah.
But you look at Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah, I love football.
I loved his work.
Yeah.
He was a sports fanatic.
Uh-huh.
There's Hemingway. There's all these people that I derive love from what they did, and they derive love from this thing. So obviously it can't be just discounted.
Sure.
And not to mention the fact that just, a million smokers can't be wrong isn't a good analogy. But
No.
So many people get value from this. There has to be something there.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it's something maybe negative.
Right.
But I don't think that sports is all negative, although anything will have its negative and positives.
Of course. Well, as someone who quit smoking a year ago, that a million smokers are wrong. It sucks to have to stop. Yeah, it's that's yeah. I'm trying to think of what I'm trying to say here. It's you're right. It is. I turn back to. The music of the Smiths, which they have a song that says, "It's so easy to laugh, it's so easy to hate. It takes guts to be gentle and kind." And I think that so much of that cynicism is because it's easy. It is easy to hate things. Fun too.
I had to stop myself from hating you for quoting the Smiths.
Oh, is that right?
Right there, I had that cynical uprising.
Fair enough.
Like, I don't like that thing that the singer did later,
right? So
I don't want you to quote the Smiths.
Oh no, yeah, I'm in no way a Morrissey apologist. So please, by all means.
But I feel like it's interesting that in the course of this conversation, we started with this sort of like almost dismissive, liking of this film to sort of going like, you know what, there's more to it. Like, just in the conversation, we're like, you know what, his best film today.
And that is honestly, like, as it went on, that's how I kind of started to feel, because the second I saw the, like, quirky animation and the quirky Wes Anderson music, I was like, fuck this. I really something about it rubbed me the wrong way.
There is something that feels like that indie film tropes that are throughout it.
Right.
But at the same time, this was 17 years ago, so those tropes weren't necessarily set in stone yet.
True. Very true.
This may have created a lot of them. And also, there are plenty of styles of film that I can go, yeah, I know they're the tropes that are here, but I love them.
Sure.
They connect with me.
Yeah.
There's the sort of cliche concept of the intellectual that is unable to emotionally connect with other people. That is such an overused trope that I love every time.
Right.
I enjoy watching it anytime they put it in something.
Yeah.
And there are those tropes that people that are pretty cliche, but no one calls them out, and it's actually cool to like them. These science fiction tropes, there's a million of them that have been done 1,000 times. Right. And if you still like them, then that's just cool because you're cool and you like sci-fi.
Right.
And there's another example. I like science fiction. You don't have to be that good to be liked by me if you're sci-fi, because they connect with them. So if someone connects with the indie tropes, if they connect with those structures, that doesn't mean that they're an idiot that doesn't understand film. As long as they have some self-awareness to go like, yeah, I know it's been done, but I like it. I get it.
Yeah, that's true. Especially, you're right. Boy, with sci-fi, it's rehashing things has become really the thing to do. Did you see Stranger Things?
Yes.
I mean, that's all that was. I wasn't a particularly big fan of the actual story itself, but I was like, that's cool. The flashlights they use are the ones from E.T. I like that.
It's nostalgia mining in many ways. Yeah. So now I feel more, okay, since it got brought up, the book that I hated was Ready Player One.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, a lot of people got a lot from it. I get it, and I could go into why I disliked it and what didn't connect with me. But the main, one of the things is that book was largely nostalgia mining. It was hugely that, and Stranger Things was hugely that. I like Stranger Things. Yeah. The nostalgia mining was in there, but it didn't seem one as much. But also, I just liked that story more. I thought it connected with it more, and I thought it personally that it was done much better.
Well, it was good.
Yeah, and but there is, you start to have to wonder what is being done there. Like, is it someone trying to do that because they genuinely love those things and they love the feeling they get from them and they just want to share that feeling? Or is it someone going like, this will sell some stuff?
Right.
Get these, and then without knowing that, you can either side on the air of cynicism or optimism, I suppose.
Right. Well, and especially in the case of Stranger Things, those guys that made it are like 25. So I'm like, well, you weren't even I mean, they're young, they're younger than me, and so I'm like, well, so it's kind of interesting that maybe it got filtered through this lens of, nostalgic for a time that they weren't even in.
Participating in.
That also,
I mean, I certainly have had that.
I
fell in love with the 20s when I was reading Hemingway and Fitzgerald and stuff like that. The Lost Generation or the Jazz Generation, depending. But and then the music I listened to is largely from that era and around then and stuff like that. So I definitely can understand that. Maybe they just love that time period.
Sure.
And they love art that was made then.
Right. In a way, it gets magnified through that lens so much that it can kind of look like you're saying, nostalgia mining, which is huge right now. That's and
it makes you wonder. I'm sure there's a very good chance that, because that wasn't the problem I had with Ready Player One necessarily, that he just did that because he loved those things and he wanted to write about them and it was fun.
Sure.
It didn't connect with me, but obviously connected with a ton of people because it was wildly successful. Right. A lot of people got not angry at me. I presented it as this is my opinion and it's okay to not have that opinion, but they greatly disagreed with me, and Steven Spielberg's making a film out of it.
Right.
And I could definitely see liking the film. I mean, you got some talented people involved in it.
A million Spielbergs can't be wrong. I mean I'm definitely hardwired, not hardwired, but I tend to hate things that I see as kind of a cash grab, like bands getting back together, stuff like that. It kind of tends to bother me because I'm like, well, why is it?
But what if not? What? Yeah. One of the things too, and I have to point this out to people sometimes, is when there's a film going on or a TV show is a better example, and let's say one of the characters leaves or dies, and they replace the character. You get this uproar of people being like, they should have just ended the show. How dare they? They're just trying to make money. And you forget that, this is a lot of people's livelihood.
Yeah.
The grip, the caterer, the costume designer, the all the script supervisor. This is how they make their money. And they were friends with that person.
Right.
So it's really, really logical that person would have been like, by no means stop production of the show.
Right.
You guys need to feed your kids.
Right.
We forget that there's jobs involved. We forget that there's lives involved. And it just becomes this thing that is there for our entertainment. And how dare you not do what I want with it?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that is interesting, especially with television because it is so serialized and meant to ideally keep going. That right.
Or at least it does in the United States. We have sort of a different relationship with television than you do in England, it seems.
Sure.
Where it's really rare for something to go on more than a couple seasons. Right. You have Doctor Who and Peep Show and 2 other shows, and then
interestingly, the ones that do though. I mean, what was
they go on forever?
Yeah,
Who's been going on for 40 years?
The EastEnders, I think.
Hiatus.
Yeah, I think there's a show called The EastEnders that started in the.
Yeah, well, that's sort of like General Hospital, though.
Yeah,
so
right.
Like the daytime soap operas kind of go on forever.
Right.
Yeah. So General Hospital was a show for 45 years or something like that.
I think it started on the radio.
General Hospital?
I believe so. Yeah, one of those.
Oh, I can believe it. Yeah,
that
would kind of make sense.
Yeah, one of them started on the radio. That's fucking crazy.
and then it almost like this thing's dragging on. Until it gets to a certain point, then you're like, keep going.
Yeah, right.
Like The Simpsons.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
You're like, oh, they should have ended this after season 10, and then they're on season 40. You're like, how far can we take this? Yeah. Let's go, guys. Let's go.
Right. Well, and it is possible to keep going for so long and stay relevant. I mean, it's weird to think. South Park's been on. It's like they're on season 20. It's just wild.
And there's still they this last season isn't a perfect example of it, but the season before that they still were surprising people and doing weird things and connecting and making things that really resonated with the culture.
Yeah.
I think a big difference there though is the 2 people who created South Park are still the 2 people creating South Park.
Right.
They've had different writers and stuff, but they're still the main influences. Whereas The Simpsons I don't think there's any writer that's still on the staff that was originally there, and it's mostly fans of the show are now writing the show.
Interesting.
And it creates sort of a weird parody of itself.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but it would be the writers now would be people who probably grew up with it. That's
or at least maybe not grew up with it like kids, but they were fans of it. They found it and watched it and later wrote for it. And that's going to create a weird dynamic, I'd imagine.
For sure. No, that's interesting. That had not occurred to me. Speaking of The Simpsons, in the elevator scene, right at the end of this, there's like kind of a fancy couple in the elevator with them, and the guy in that couple is a man named George Meyer, who was a writer on The Simpsons. Like I don't know why he's there, but he's like this famously really eccentric comedy writer. And I was like, oh shit! I was like, that looks a lot like George Meyer. And then I saw in the credits it was. I was like, but why? That's so weird. He must be a friend of David O. Russell or something.
Jason Schwartzman's mother in this movie is Jason Schwartzman's mother.
Oh, really?
His actual mother, yeah.
Francis
who was
Ford
apparently an actress.
Francis Ford Coppola's sister.
Is it? Oh, yeah, that's right. He's cousins to, like, he's part of the Coppola.
Nicolas Cage is his cousin, yeah.
Nicolas Cage, yeah. I wonder how they got into the movie business.
I don't know. Weird.
Yeah. It must have been an uphill battle.
Yeah, I tell you. Well, Nicolas Cage at the beginning of his career went by Nicolas Coppola.
Yeah, I mean, Schwartzman went by Schwartzman. They changed their name. But the fact is that you can change your name, but you still have the connections.
Sure, right.
You still have your foot in the door.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you should not have a career.
Absolutely not.
Lots of very talented people, including Jason Schwartzman and Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, it did, and this definitely did remind me how much I like Jason Schwartzman. He's got a very boy. He can be funny when he wants to be, but he's great. He's great.
The cast is fantastic.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I meant to bring up is just how good is this cast. They're wonderfully casted in their roles. They're just also all incredibly talented. I mean, like what was it? Like 7 out of 10 of them have been nominated for Oscars. Yeah, it's a great cast. Jude Law. Yeah. I think people. I don't know if people are they crapping on him now. I feel like they might.
Yeah, they didn't like him because he cheated on his wife with their nanny or something like that. Some personal.
I didn't even know.
Personal.
But he's great in this.
Yeah, he's great.
He's great in AI. Mm-hmm. He's a very, very good actor.
Yeah, he is. Yes.
I like him.
And I think one thing we can say about this movie is just overrated.
I feel that David O. Russell tried something and in many ways accomplished something incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And if it had been received more, or maybe you could argue done slightly better, it could have created a genre. It was very unique in its own right, and maybe did influence the indie film genre, and is completely overrated.
Oh, man. I think next week we'll be moving on to a new theme. Is that right?
There's a new theme.
Excellent. I don't know what it's going to be yet. We'll have to figure that out.
I think I know, but just in case, I don't want to say it, so we have wiggle room to change our minds.
Yes, because we don't want any rumors to start, on the forums.
Because the rabid fans of this thing that has not aired yet.
Yeah.
By the way, if this does air and there are people listening, you can point out that we're hypocrites. Yeah. Because we talk a lot about not, judging film, and then maybe we do. Yeah. Just don't be a jerk about it.
Yeah.
I do not have the emotional intelligence to deal with that.
Yeah. I know what I look like. All right. I see it every day. You think you've down? Yeah, exactly. God damn.
You bastards that don't exist yet.
Yeah, I'm front loading with some defensive right away.
I had a YouTube video go close to viral. Mm-hmm. It became the number one downloaded in Australia for like a month. And,
really?
And I got like 300,000 hits. I made it with a friend of ours, and these really negative comments would pop out. Most of them were positive. Yeah. I remember none of the positive ones.
Of course not, yeah.
And every negative one would break my heart, and I would just kind of like get so self-conscious and sad. But the person I made it with was far more emotionally stable than me. And so he would just respond with this sort of jokey response. And it was funny, just so you know the kind of people that generally troll the YouTube videos. He would respond, and their wit disappears.
Sure.
So, like, for example, one of them I remember saying, because it was the comedy piece we put up, it said, "Oh, the fine art of not being funny." And my director, the guy who directed it, put, "Well, as long as you're calling us art, we'll take it."
Right.
It's just like a jokey little thing. Yeah. And the guy's response, and this happened 100% of the time, by the way, the guy's response was just like, "Fuck you, jerk."
Yeah.
Like, it was every time, none of the cleverness in the original response remained.
Oh man, yeah. If you ever want to see some, like, if you're ever feeling like halfway decent about humanity, just go ahead and read some YouTube comments, man. It's rough down there.
It is, and to put myself in that is scary, but
it'll be all right, James. No one's gonna see this.
Yeah, there's that piece of reality.
If that's any comfort,
comforting.
Yeah. Oh man.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I've been James Fluty.
Michael J. O'Connor. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.